Alright, so let's get started. Hello guys, I'm your Cambridge whole-level biology instructor, Aymaan, and today we are going to be talking about blood and circulation. So this chapter, it has two portions. One is where we talk about the structure of heart, the composition of blood, and how this blood circulates around the body. And in the second portion, we will talk about the blood cells, right, and the blood vessel. In this video, we will only be discussing about the structure of heart and the composition of blood and how it circulates around the body. First of all, we have to understand what is heart, right? So, see, heart, it is a muscular organ which is composed of cardiac muscle. Now, what do we mean by this? Remember that muscles, in general, there are three types of muscle. Alright? Types of muscle. So there are three types of muscle. One is the skeletal muscle. Right? The example of skeletal muscle will be your biceps and triceps. Right? These are the frameworks of your body. Alright? It helps in movement. Right? Then we have the smooth muscle. These are muscles that are present in organs, right, such as the stomach, right? And then there is a special type of muscle called the cardiac muscle. This is only present in your heart, right? Hence we say that heart, it is a muscular organ because this is made up of a special form of muscle that is called the cardiac muscle, right? So to understand the structure of heart, let's first see a basic diagram. Right, so if I draw a diagram, the heart, it looks kind of like this. Looks kind of like this. So see, it can be divided into two halves, the upper portion and the lower portion. The upper portion, we call them atria, right, or atrium, singular, whatever you call. And the lower portion, we call them ventricle. Alright? Now always remember, the diagram that you're seeing on the screen, it's opposite to what is present inside your body, right? Because it's like a mirror image, right? So whatever is on the left hand side of your screen, that is actually present on the right side of your body, and the diagram that you're seeing on the right side of the screen, that is present on the left side of your body, because that's completely a mirror image, right? So hence the atria that is present on the left over here, we actually call this the right atrium. So the opposite one would be left atrium, and whatever is the right atrium, the one that is present below is the right ventricle, right? And the opposite is left ventricle. Alright, so this is what the basic structure of heart looks like. It has four chambers that we divide into two halves, the upper portion, lower portion. The upper chambers are called the atria, and these are complete opposite of what you see in the screen and inside your body. So the atria that is present on your left is the right atria, and the one that is present on your right is the left atrium. Alright, and the same thing goes for the ventricle. Now always remember this rule, that the right side of the heart, it carries deoxygenated blood. Alright, and the left side carries oxygenated blood. What does this mean? This is very simple. Alright, this means that the right side of your heart, it contains deoxygenated blood. It contains no oxygen. The blood over there do not have any oxygen. And on the left side, it contains oxygenated blood, or the blood that is present over there contains oxygen. Alright, so that's it. So obviously we can make this idea that the blood from the right side of your heart, it will go to the lungs because it does not have oxygen, right? It needs oxygen. So it goes from the right side of the heart to the lungs, right? So from the right atria, it will go to the right ventricle, right? And then from the right ventricle, it would go to the lungs. Similarly, from the left atria, it would go to the left ventricle, and from the left ventricle, it would go to all parts of the body because it contains oxygenated blood, all right? So now let's look at a detailed diagram to understand better. So this is what a typical heart looks like, all right? And these are the structures that we should be able to identify when we are talking about the structure of the heart, all right? So see, heart, it is surrounded by some blood vessels, right? What are blood vessels? Blood vessels are basically tube-like channels that carry this blood all throughout the body, right? So if I just mark, this is the right atrium, right? This is the left atrium. Let me write it down. This is the left atrium, and this is the right atrium, right? Then this is the right ventricle, and this is the left ventricle, all right? So other than that, this is the basic structure of heart, right? We have some blood vessels that we need to identify. Now let's identify the blood vessels. See, from the right ventricle, this vessel carries the blood from the heart to the lungs, all right? So it branches into two halves because we have two lungs, right? One goes to the left lung, one goes to the right lung, right? This vessel, this is called the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery. Always remember, artery carry blood away from the heart. We'll discuss in detail during the discussion of vessels, but we'll just for a short idea, remember that artery carry blood away from the heart. So the artery that carries blood from the heart to the lungs, that's called pulmonary artery. Right? Remember, term pulmonary, it's in biology, it means the lungs, right? Or it's related to the lungs. Similarly, from the left ventricle, we can see there is this massive artery, right? This carries blood all throughout the body, and this artery is called the aorta, right? And remember, aorta, it's the largest artery in the body, right? So this is the aorta. So these are the two vessel, or we can say these are the two artery that carries blood away from the heart. Now what brings blood back to the heart? So first let's talk about the right ventricle again. So we have already sent blood through the pulmonary artery to the lungs, and from the lungs blood will return back to the heart through these veins that are called pulmonary vein. There are 4 of them, all right? And this will drain into the left atrium of the heart. All right, so this is called the pulmonary vein. Always remember that vein, they carry blood back to the heart. All right, so this is the pulmonary vein. And from the entire body, blood is brought back to the heart through the superior vena cava and to inferior vena cava, to the right atrium of the heart. All right, so this is just identifying the structures, right? We identified the structure of the heart, we identified the vessels that are related to the structure of the heart. All right, we talked a bit about the circulation, but not in details. I just gave you guys the idea that from the pulmonary artery it goes to lungs, then the pulmonary vein it brings back to the left atrium of the heart, and from the aorta it goes to the entire body, and then it comes back to the superior inferior vena cava. We're going to talk about the circulation again a bit later, but this is just to identify the structure. All right, finally we have to talk about some valves. All right, so what are valves? Valves are basically some flaps. All right, these are some flaps that prevent backflow of blood. Alright? So we say that valves are basically flaps that prevent the backflow of blood. Okay, so there are mainly three valves that we need to identify for our O levels. The one that is present between the right atrium and the right ventricle, this one, this is called the tricuspid valve. Right? It also has another name, the parachute valve, right? But that's not important. It is called tricuspid. Why is it called tricuspid? Remember, tri means three, right? And cusp means flap. Alright, so it has three flaps. Hence we call it tricuspid. And the one that is present between the left atria and the left ventricle, that is called the mitral valve or the bicuspid valve, because it has two flaps, right? Or the bicuspid. The one that is present between the right ventricle and the pulmonary artery, this one, and the left ventricle and the aorta, these are called the semilunar valve. Right? This is just for understanding. Just remember the name. That's it. That these are called the semilunar valves. Why semilunar? Because it's like a half-shaped moon, right? So it's called the semilunar valve. So this is the basic structure of the heart. We identified its structure, right? We talked a little bit about circulation, not in details yet, but the main goal is to identify it. And we also differentiated that the right side of the heart, it contains deoxygenated blood, and the left side, it contains oxygenated blood. Now let's look at our notes. So over here, we can see that the heart is a muscular organ, that it is composed of cardiac muscles. Then we already stated that it has four chambers: the right atrium, right ventricle, and the left ventricle. We already discussed what kind of blood each chamber contains. The right side, it contains deoxygenated, and the left side, it contains oxygenated, right? Then we talked about some vessels that are associated with the heart: the pulmonary artery, the aorta, which is the largest artery of the body. Then we talked about the pulmonary vein and the vena cava, both the superior vena cava, bringing blood from the upper part of your body, so the one that goes to your like limbs, the upper limbs, that is the arm, hands, the brain, and the inferior vena cava that brings blood from the lower parts of your body, right? That is from the legs, right? Then we talked about the valves, which are mainly three types: the tricuspid or the parachute valve, the bicuspid or mitral valve, and finally the semilunar valve. Finally, always remember that, see, when I drew the heart, I drew a line between them. This line is called the septum. Alright, it separates the right side of your heart from the left side of your heart, so that the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood do not mix and you get maximum oxygen level in your body. Alright, so this is all about the structure. Now let's talk about circulation. So humans, we have something called a double circulation. There is something called a single circulation, but we have what is called a double circulation. What does double mean? Double means twice, right? So basically, double circulation means that blood will enter the heart twice during one complete circulation. Alright? So double circulation, it has two parts: the pulmonary circulation, the systemic circulation. Again, pulmonary, so it is related to the lungs, right? And systemic means to all parts of our body. So before understanding this, let's look at another diagram as well. There. So this is a very good picture and a very simple picture that I found on the internet that talks about the double circulation. So see, blood from the right ventricle, it goes to the lungs, right? And from the lungs, it comes back to the left atrium. of the heart, right? So remember, we start from right ventricle. So in pulmonary circulation, we start from right ventricle. From the right ventricle, it goes through the pulmonary artery to the lungs, right? And in the lungs, we have the deoxygenated blood. So in the lungs, there is oxygen. So this blood will get oxygen, right? Now it became oxygenated blood. Now this oxygenated blood will leave through the pulmonary vein. And from this pulmonary vein, it enters back to the left atrium of the heart. All right, so this is pulmonary circulation. So the blue diagrams, the blue part, it indicates deoxygenated blood, and the red part, it indicates oxygenated blood. So you see the deoxygenated blood carried by the pulmonary artery, it is going to the lungs, and from the lungs it becomes oxygenated and comes back to the left atrium, right? And now from the left atrium, blood will now go to the left ventricle, right? Okay, now let's talk about the systemic circulation. Systemic circulation, this starts from the left ventricle, which contains the oxygenated blood, right? So from the left ventricle, blood goes to the aorta. From the aorta, it goes to both the upper part of our body and the lower part of our body, right? So see, so if this was your aorta, it is going to the upper part, that is your brain, right? And also the lower part of your body, that is the liver, then stomach, and also the rest of the body, right? So we can say rest of the body. And then it supplies that oxygen to all the organs and tissues and everything, and then it comes back as deoxygenated blood through the here. This is the superior vena cava, and from the lower part it is coming back through the inferior vena cava, right? So we can say from rest of the body it comes back to the superior plus inferior vena cava, and back to the right atrium. And again, what happens from there? So from the right atrium, it will go to the right ventricle, and then the pulmonary circulation would repeat, right? The pulmonary artery, lungs, pulmonary vein, and left atrium. Then again, the systemic circulation would repeat from the left ventricle. So this is what or how our circulation works, right? So we rely on double circulation. What is double circulation? You see, blood is entering the heart twice. Once from the right ventricle, it goes to the lungs, and then it again enters the heart. This is the first time it enters the heart, right? And simultaneously, from the left ventricle, it goes to all parts of our body, and from all parts of our body, it comes back to the heart again. So blood is entering the heart twice during one circulation. Hence, we say that we are examples of double circulation, or our heart is an example of double circulation, right? That is, blood is entering the heart twice during one complete circulation. Alright? So, now that we understood double circulation, what are the advantages of double circulation? We have to understand that. See, why is double circulation needed? See, blood, it is divided, right? One is going to the lungs, one is going to all parts of our body. So we can say that blood that is entering the lung, it is at low pressure. So due to this low pressure, blood can stay in the lungs for a long period of time, right? So during this period of time, this blood, it gets well oxygenated, right? It gets the maximum oxygen possible. Okay? Hence, this is one advantage. But the blood that is leaving the systemic circulation, it's entering the aorta, right? And the aorta, it has a very high pressure, right? So this creates a very high pressure. And what's the advantage of this high pressure? This ensures that the blood, it is rapidly distributed to each and every point of your body, right? Each and every tissue gets this oxygen at a very fast rate. Okay, and finally, what I said before, that there is something known as the septum, right, which separates the right side of your heart from the left side. This ensures that your oxygenated and deoxygenated blood don't mix. You receive as much oxygen as possible, or your tissues receive as much oxygen as possible, right? So this is an example of double circulation. On the other hand, we have the single circulation. Now, the single circulation, it is something that happens in fish, and this is very important for your O-level exams, right? Remember that in single circulation, blood enters the heart only once. All right, so blood enters the heart only once, right, in one complete cycle. All right, so so how does this occur? So first, the heart, it will pump the deoxygenated blood, right? So let's say this is your heart, or this is the fish heart, right, because this occurs in fish, right? So from the heart, it will go to the gills. All right, gills is where the fish gets its oxygen, right? So it's kind of like the fish's lungs. So the blood is getting oxygen, and from the gills, it won't come back to our heart. What happens in humans? From the lungs, it comes back to the heart, right? But from the gills, instead, it would go to all part of the body. All right, so let's say rest of the body, and from the rest of the body, blood, it will come back to the heart. So see, in one cycle, it leaves the heart, it gets oxygen, it delivers the oxygen, then it comes back to the heart. So this is an example of single circulation. Why is it less efficient? Because see, the blood, it needs to be pumped at high pressure over here, because it has to go to all parts of the body, right? So in the gills, it does not stay for a long period of time, right? And so we cannot say that it becomes as well oxygenated as in humans, right? Also, the tissues, they are receiving as much oxygen as possible, but this level of oxygen, it is lower in compared to our heart, right, or our body, right? Hence, this is the difference between double circulation and single circulation. The key difference is, in one cycle, blood is entering the heart twice in double circulation, and in single circulation, it enters the heart only once. All right? So we talked about the structure of the heart, we talked about the double circulation, right? Finally, we are going to talk about the composition of blood. All right. So this is very important, right? A lot of students do not actually understand what blood is made of. Remember, there is a fixed definition of blood. All right, what is blood? Blood is a specialized form of liquid connective tissue. You have to mention liquid connective tissue. And another thing, blood is not neutral. A lot of students think that blood is neutral. No, blood is slightly alkaline. Its pH is 7.2 to 7.4. A neutral pH is pH 7, right? But blood, it is 7.2 to 7.4. So we can say that it is slightly alkaline. Right? Now blood, it contains two parts. If I give you a flowchart, it contains two parts. One is the blood plasma, and one is the blood cells. Alright, so remember, blood cells, these are only of three types: the red blood cell, white blood cell, and the platelet. And they have another name, right? The erythrocytes, the leukocytes, and the thrombocyte. And blood plasma, this blood plasma is the main liquid portion of the blood. Alright, and the cells, these are like floating, or these are inside the blood plasma, right? So over here we are going to talk about mainly the blood plasma. So what is plasma? It is a yellowish straw colored liquid, right? It contains two parts, water about 90% and the remaining 10% or 8 to 10% is solid, right? What is important for our syllabus is to identify the composition of blood plasma. This is very, very important. We need to know what is present in blood plasma. So we already stated, right, that 90% is water, right? The remaining substances are mainly some proteins, that is fibrinogen, prothrombin, albumin, right? Then we have some respiratory gases such as carbon dioxide and oxygen. We have the dissolved nutrients, the amino acids, glucose, fatty acids. Then we have the regulatory substances such as hormones and enzymes, and even it contains waste products such as urea and uric acid. So see, blood plasma, it is the main transport medium, it is the main transport form, it is transporting everything, right? And majority of the blood plasma, we already said that it is liquid, and it is very important to know the color. It is a straw colored liquid, right? So over here, as we stated, from the composition we already know its function, right? It carries the blood cell. I already said that the cells, these are floating on the blood plasma, are being carried by the blood plasma. It transports carbon dioxide, oxygen, digested food. It carries urea to the kidneys. It carries hormones and enzymes, and it also distributes heat. See, the main role of blood is due to blood plasma. Alright, it is very, very, very important to understand the composition of blood plasma. Alright. Finally, over here, we will only talk about one blood cell, that is the red blood cell. Alright. Later on during our lectures, we'll discuss in detail about the platelets and white blood cell. I'll just give you guys an idea over here. The white blood cells, these are mainly the defense structures in our body, right? And the red blood cells, and the platelets, they mainly help in blood clotting, right? So remember, what is the function of red blood cell? The function of red blood cell is to carry oxygen. We say that blood transports oxygen, right? So how does it transport this oxygen? It transports this oxygen with the help of this red blood cell. Because this red blood cell, they contain a special protein that is this protein has irons with them, right? We say it's an iron containing protein, right? So this iron containing protein, it's called the hemoglobin. So this hemoglobin, it combines with oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin, and this oxyhemoglobin is how the blood transports oxygen from all parts from the lungs to all parts of the body. All right, and then see, this is a reversible reaction, right? We learn about reversible reactions in chemistry, that this reaction can go either way. So in the tissues, what happens is this oxyhemoglobin, this breaks down to give the oxygen and hemoglobin, and then this oxygen enters into the tissues. All right, now understanding the structure of red blood cell, we have to understand or answer one question: how is the structure of red blood cell adapted to its function? This is a very, very common question in your Cambridge O level, and this is very important. Remember, red blood cells, they have no nucleus. This ensures that it can carry more hemoglobin, right? It carries more hemoglobin, hence it can carry more oxyhemoglobin, so more oxygen can be transported. It has a biconcave shape. What is the advantage of this biconcave shape? So the smallest blood vessel is capillary, right? So this capillary lumen is very, very small, and only the red blood cell can pass through it by squeezing through the capillary lumen, and this is due to their biconcave or flattened disc shape. Right? They have thin cell membranes, so oxygen can easily diffuse in and diffuse out. Alright? And as said before, they are small and flexible, so they can squeeze through the capillary lumen. This is all that you guys need to know about the red blood cell or the erythrocytes. Alright, so giving you guys a summary, in this video we talked about the structure of the heart, right? Mainly we talked about the structure of the heart, that it contains 4 chambers, the valves. Then we talked about the vessels that are related to the structure of the heart. We said which portion contains the oxygenated and the deoxygenated part, right? Then we talked about the double circulation, right? Why is it called the double circulation? The pulmonary and the systemic circulation. And finally, we talked about the blood, the composition of blood, right? It contains 2 parts, plasma and the blood cells. There are 3 types of blood cell, right? The red blood cell, white blood cell, and the platelets. We talked about the red blood cell in detail. And finally, we talked about plasma. We talked about the composition of plasma, and very, very important, the color of plasma. It is a yellowish straw color liquid. And of course, the definition of blood. It is a specialized form of liquid connective tissue which is slightly alkaline. Again, it is not neutral, it is slightly alkaline. Alright? Hopefully you guys understood. This is it for blood and circulation.